Nearly 2 weeks after the tragic crash of an Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner that claimed 279 lives, pressure is mounting on Indian authorities. The international community is closely watching as questions grow over how the investigation is being handled. In a major development, officials confirmed they have successfully retrieved and accessed the aircraft's black box data, a crucial step toward uncovering what really happened in the final moments of Flight AI-171. But while this technical breakthrough offers hope for answers, it is being overshadowed by controversy. India has rejected a rare and unexpected offer from the International Civil Aviation Organization, a United Nations agency, to send expert observers to support the investigation. This refusal has raised eyebrows around the globe, fueling concerns over transparency, independence, and India's willingness to collaborate with the wider aviation community. What we're seeing are two storylines unfolding at once: a race against time to decode critical flight data, and a diplomatic tightrope walk over who gets to be involved in the search for truth. As the world awaits answers, the handling of this investigation may become as defining as the findings themselves. On June 26th, India's Ministry of Civil Aviation announced on Thursday that investigators have successfully downloaded data from the black boxes of the Air India aircraft. The plane had crashed earlier this month, marking one of the most devastating incidents in recent aviation history. This marks a critical step in efforts to determine the cause of what is now considered the deadliest aviation accident in the world in the past 10 years. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was operating a scheduled flight from the city of Ahmedabad in India to the capital of the United Kingdom, London, when it crashed just minutes after takeoff on June 12th. The impact claimed the lives of 241 out of the 242 people on board, including both passengers and crew, as well as several people on the ground in the residential area where the aircraft went down. Following the crash, rescue and recovery teams launched an extensive operation to locate the aircraft's flight recorders, which are vital to understanding what happened in the moments leading up to the disaster. The cockpit voice recorder, which captures conversations and audio signals in the flight deck, was found on the rooftop of a building near the crash site on June 13th. The flight data recorder, which logs detailed information about the aircraft's systems and performance, was recovered 3 days later on June 16th from the wreckage. Investigators say that accessing and analyzing the data from both recorders will allow them to piece together the aircraft's final moments. This could be crucial in identifying whether the cause was related to mechanical failure, human error, or other external factors, and ultimately help prevent similar tragedies in the future. According to this ministry, the black box data was accessed on Wednesday by a joint investigative team comprising India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau and the United States National Transportation Safety Board. The team received technical support from engineers at aircraft manufacturer Boeing and General Electric, which is responsible for providing the engines and data recording systems for the Dreamliner. The ministry stated, "These efforts aim to reconstruct the sequence of events that led to the crash and identify contributing factors, thereby enhancing aviation safety and preventing similar disasters in the future." NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy, speaking on the sidelines of an aviation event in Washington, expressed hope that India would soon share the results of the investigation with the public and the global aviation community. "For the safety of the public and for transparency, we hope India will release the investigation findings quickly," she said, while also acknowledging the strong cooperation between the NTSB and the AAIB in the data analysis process. A source familiar with the matter said the investigation is focusing on whether the aircraft experienced a loss of engine thrust after reaching an altitude of approximately 650 feet before rapidly descending into a residential area. Media reports have indicated that the aircraft's auxiliary power unit remained operational at the time of the crash, a detail that may prove critical in assessing the condition of onboard electronic systems in the final moments. Both the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder on the Boeing 787 are engineered to be highly resilient. They are designed to collect overlapping flight information while being placed in physically separate parts of the aircraft fuselage. a deliberate safety feature meant to maximize the chances of data recovery even in the most catastrophic circumstances. Of particular importance is the forward-mounted voice recorder, which includes a dedicated backup power unit. This system can maintain operations for up to 10 minutes if the main aircraft electrical system fails, a critical window that can preserve final communications and technical parameters, according to a 2014 safety review by the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board. Despite these robust designs, the timeline of data retrieval has raised eyebrows. Experts have pointed out that waiting nearly 2 weeks to begin downloading black box data represents a considerable delay, especially for a crash of such magnitude. In an era where swift action is often viewed as a signal of transparency and competence, the delay has drawn concern from aviation analysts and the international community. Aviation safety expert Anthony Brickhouse noted that such postponements could erode public confidence, emphasizing that timely data analysis is not just a technical step, but also a matter of global accountability. Indian authorities, responding to growing scrutiny, clarified last week that they were still assessing the most appropriate site for the analysis of the recovered data, either domestically or at specialized facilities abroad, such as those in the United States. They reaffirmed that all actions so far have been conducted in line with both national legislation and the international standards governing civil aviation incidents. As pressure mounts for transparency and clarity, a preliminary investigation report is scheduled for release within 30 days of the crash, a timeline closely watched by both domestic observers and international aviation bodies. India has declined to allow a United Nations aviation investigator to participate in the probe into the Air India crash. However, just as the investigation made a significant step forward with the successful retrieval of black box data, a sensitive diplomatic development emerged. The Indian government is reported to have rejected a proposal from the International Civil Aviation Organization, a United Nations agency, to send an international investigator to join the inquiry. This move comes amid close international scrutiny from aviation experts and global stakeholders, particularly regarding how India is handling technical procedures, transparency, and adherence to international standards in what is now a disaster of global aviation scale. New Delhi, June 25th. India has turned down an unusual proposal from the International Civil Aviation Organization, the UN's Civil Aviation Authority, to appoint an observer in the investigation into the crash of an Air India Boeing 7878 Dreamliner. The decision has sparked debate across the global aviation community, as some experts express concern over delays and a perceived lack of transparency in India's handling of the investigation. The Dreamliner, operating as Flight AI-171, crashed just minutes after takeoff from the city of Ahmedabad on June 12th during its journey to London. It is considered one of the deadliest commercial aviation disasters worldwide since 2014. The tragedy resulted in the devastating loss of both those on board and people living in the impact area. Deep sorrow now weighs heavily on countless families left behind. Amid close international scrutiny of the investigation, the International Civil Aviation Organization proposed sending an investigator to support the process. The organization, which is responsible for overseeing global aviation standards, also requested observer status during the data analysis and reconstruction of the crash. However, according to two senior sources familiar with the matter, the Indian government declined the proposal. It is highly unusual for ICAO to proactively offer participation in such investigations. In major past incidents, such as the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 over Ukraine in 2014, or the 2020 crash involving Ukraine, International Airlines, ICAO only became involved after receiving a formal invitation from the country concerned. In the case of Air India, this marks the first time in years that ICAO has sought direct involvement without waiting for an official request. According to the sources, the ICAO's proposal was submitted earlier this week. It followed mounting criticism from aviation experts over the pace and transparency of India's handling of the investigation, especially concerning the black box analysis. One of the devices, the cockpit voice recorder, was recovered from the rooftop of a nearby building on June 13th. The other, the flight data recorder, was located in the wreckage on June 16th. However, it was not until June 25th that India's Ministry of Civil Aviation confirmed that the data from both black boxes had been successfully downloaded. The delay has raised questions among both domestic and international experts. Postponing the black box analysis could result in the loss of critical data or hinder the ability to accurately determine the cause of the crash. Additionally, it remains unclear whether the data from the black boxes is being decoded in India or will be sent to the United States, where the National Transportation Safety Board has the necessary facilities. The NTSB is currently assisting in the investigation, along with Boeing and General Electric, the aircraft and engine manufacturers involved. So far, the Indian government has held only one official press briefing on the incident, which did not include a question-and-answer session with the media. Meanwhile, both the International Civil Aviation Organization and India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau have yet to comment on the reports concerning the rejection of a United Nations observer. According to international protocols outlined in ICAO's Annex 13, which is the globally recognized framework for aviation accident investigations, decisions regarding the location and procedures for black box analysis should be made as promptly as possible. This is necessary to preserve vital data and help prevent future tragedies. ICAO also encourages transparent communication to maintain public trust and the confidence of the global aviation community. An anonymous official from India's Ministry of Civil Aviation told local media earlier this week that the country had fully complied with ICAO's technical protocols and that key developments had been communicated to the press. However, some experts argue that this is not sufficient to ensure transparency and impartiality in the investigation. Indian authorities have stated that a preliminary report on the crash will be released within 30 days of the incident, around mid-July. Still, amid growing international pressure, many believe India must demonstrate greater transparency and cooperation in the investigation, especially given the involvement of major aviation bodies like the NTSB and ICAO. The Air India crash resulted in a high number of casualties. It also involved multiple international stakeholders. In addition, there are lingering questions about technical, operational, and human factors. Together, these elements have turned the crash into a test of India's ability to conduct an independent investigation. It is also a test of the country's willingness to cooperate with the global aviation community. Black box data has now been retrieved. A preliminary report is expected within 30 days. However, experts emphasize that transparency, the timeliness of information release, and a spirit of international collaboration will be key. These elements are crucial not only for uncovering the root cause of the incident, but also for restoring public trust and improving aviation safety in the future.